Hey guys, it's Angel. Today we're back in the kitchen and I am making pork blood soup. Now I know it sounds a little weird that we're going to be using pork blood, but it's actually a really famous soup in Taiwan. Now in Mandarin we call this 猪血汤, and in Taiwanese it's pronounced as 低血汤. And the main ingredient is this coagulated pork blood in here. It's very delicious, so if you guys are interested, keep watching. Now for the ingredients. We'll need a little bit of ginger. I like to use about this much. And here I'm going to cut half of the ginger piece into smaller, thin slices, and the rest I'm leaving into big chunks like this. Set this off to the side. Now we'll prepare our chives and our green onions. So I have 2 stalks of green onions and a little bit of garlic chives, which will be nice in the soup. And I'm also going to put a little bit of this into the meatballs that we'll be making. And for the top green parts of the green onions, I'll just cut them into large slices like this. Now our chives. Next, we'll cut up some pickled mustard greens. And pickled mustard greens are kind of sour. You can also make pickled mustard greens at home and preserve them yourself. So I'm just going to take some pickled mustard greens out. I'm going to use about this much. Just slice these into thin slices like so. I'll just set this aside here. The next ingredient we'll need is pork blood. And this one is a little bit hard to find. I found this at my local Asian grocery store. You can find it either in the frozen section or in the refrigerated section. And this came either cooked or it came in a Jello type form. I was looking for this word, congelated, what is it? Coagulated. Coagulated, that's the word I'm looking for, okay. And all I did was the night before, I boiled it on low and simmered for about 30 minutes. And then afterwards, I rinsed with cold water and put this in the refrigerator overnight. And now it's ready to use. And if you guys wanna see what that looks like prior to cooking, I'll show you, but I'll show you at the end of this video because it is pork blood and I don't wanna scare you guys off because this is a delicious soup recipe. Next, I'm going to be making the pork meatballs. So usually in this type of soup, it'll come with either pig intestine or pig heart or pig liver. But since I couldn't find pig intestine at the store, I'm going to substitute with some ground pork meatballs. So we'll need about a 1/4 pound of ground pork. That's about a 1/4 pound. Next, I will season the meatballs with some green onions that we cut up earlier. And now we'll also want to season with a little bit of salt and pepper. In here, I recommend adding white pepper, just a dash before mixing it in. But because this soup is going to be for my grandma and she doesn't like white pepper because it's a little bit spicy and makes her sneeze, I'm not gonna add it. But highly recommend if you do this at home yourself. Now I will just mix this up. Once it's just gently mixed in, we can make some meatballs with it. So I've got about a tablespoon and just roll like this. All right, so that's the last meatball. I actually made 7, so that's not bad. So now I'm gonna wash my hands with soap and water and then we'll go into the next step. Now let's prepare our soup. I'm using about 5 cups of water. I've got that on a pan and we're just going to bring that to a soft rolling boil. Now that the water is at a soft rolling boil, let's put the meatballs in. And don't forget to give them a gentle stir so they don't stick to the bottom of the pot. Now we'll let that simmer for about 2 to 3 minutes, and we're gonna season the soup with a few pinches of salt and also a dash of white pepper if you'd like. Now the white pepper, a little bit goes a long way. It'll be nice and give it kind of a spicy kick to it, so be careful, don't use too much. This is when I would add the white pepper, but I'm going to omit it for now because the soup is for my grandma. Now before we add any other ingredients, we'll just check and see if there's any impurities on the top of the soup, and if there is, you can just remove it with a spoon or a strainer. Next, let's add in the ginger. And finally, the pickled mustard greens. We're gonna give this a quick stir, and now we'll let the soup cook on low, covered for about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, now let's check on the soup. Ooh, that looks really good. So at this point, we'll add in our pork blood. And we'll want to add this at the end because it's already cooked, so we literally just need to heat this up. You can think of this like tofu cubes. So once the pork blood is in there, just kind of simmer it and heat it up. And at this point, it's also the perfect time to add in your green onions and chives. And we want to leave the green onions and chives at the end so they don't overcook. So just a few minutes, maybe like 2, and the soup will be ready to serve. And now we're ready for the taste test. So the soup is super hot. I'm gonna try a little bit of the broth first. So there's a little bit of richness from the pork meatballs, and also there's a bit of a pickled mustard green flavor. So it's a little bit sour, but it's very delicious. And there's also that ginger in there, which makes this a nice warming soup. Now I'm gonna try a cube of the pork blood. So pork blood, if you've never had it before, when you bite into it, it's a little bit like silky, almost like tofu, but like a medium tofu firmness. And it doesn't really have a flavor to it. It's a bit meaty, and here it's savory because there was a little bit of salt added to it. So it's very delicious. I love the texture, and again, it's healthy for you. It's got a lot of vitamins and minerals. The last thing I'll try is the meatball. That was really good. Think of like the inside of a pork wonton. It kind of tasted like that. Super delicious. I'm Angel. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And as my grandpa would say, sharing a meal with a fascinating stranger is one of life's true delights. So until we can share some soup together, take care, I love you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye! So this video clip is for those of you who want to see what pork blood actually looks like when you get it from the store. I have 2 different types. They're pretty much the same. This one is pork jello blood, and it's basically coagulated pork blood. Highly recommend if you use this, you wear an apron. And this other type is also pork blood too. It's coagulated pork blood, so it's basically like the same thing, but sometimes you'll see it at a store in a container like this or in the frozen food section. If you boil it on high heat, it'll end up being tough and you'll see a bunch of bubbles in it. So I recommend, if you want that silky, smooth texture that's normally known for pork blood when you have it in the soup, letting it boil for about 2 minutes until things start floating. Make sure you stir with your chopsticks and covering it with a lid and let that sit there for about 20 to 30 minutes.